right, let's talk a little bit about why you want good thoracic mobility, other than the obvious, like it helps you relieve the tightness or the tension or the achiness in your upper back. But if there is like one crux of the whole idea of improving pelvic floor and ab function, like understanding your core and making it as efficient as possible and solving all these pelvic floor and ab issues that people wind up with throughout the course of life, if there's one crux to it, it is the relationship between your diaphragm and your pelvic floor. So if we think about your diaphragm as being a muscle at the bottom of your rib cage that moves down when you inhale and up when you exhale, and then your pelvic floor muscles are the muscles that sit at the bottom of your pelvis that move down when you inhale and up when you exhale. All right, so this relationship between your diaphragm and your pelvic floor is super, super important, like the most important for effective core function. You want your diaphragm and your pelvic floor to move down together on your inhale. You want your diaphragm and your pelvic floor to move up together on your exhale. But if your rib cage is stuck in one position or your pelvis is stuck in one position, it's going to affect the ability of these two muscles to communicate with each other in an efficient way. So they can both move down and they can both move up when they're relatively parallel to each other. But as we change the orientation of your rib cage or your pelvis in space, we change the ability of these muscles to effectively communicate with each other, because they're no longer when one moves down, the other moves down, because it might be when one moves down, part of another one moves down, or only part of one moves down, and that only makes part of the other one move down, or the same sort of thing for moving up. So as we create better rib cage or thoracic spine mobility, then we create more options for movement, and we're able to get our rib cage into a better position over top of our pelvis. Obviously, we would also need good pelvis and hip mobility in order for the pelvis to get into a position where it can communicate with the rib cage. But when we're trying to figure out how to rebuild, when we're struggling with understanding pelvic floor ab function, we start with these two parallel to each other, because then all of the muscles involved are at mid-range and there are lots of options available. So we can figure out how to turn them on, we can figure out how to shorten them, we can figure out how to lengthen them, and we can learn how they function when we start at mid-range. It doesn't mean that you can't function with them in lengthened positions, but it's not the place to start. You start at the foundation, at the easiest place to access them. And then we can progress from there into more advanced or more challenging positions. But we start with those muscles in midline and with good alignment, because it's easier to find the right muscles in that position. And this is the reasoning also behind why posture matters. It's not that there is one right or perfect posture, but that when you get into this alignment, then you can find the muscles that you're trying to find. So if you're someone who struggles to understand good or effective ab function, or if you're someone who struggles to understand your pelvic floor function, it can help to be able to change your pelvis position, to learn the mobility that you need from your hips and from your pelvic floor to get into a more neutral pelvis position, and likewise from your thoracic spine. So if you feel like you've done all the things on the pelvis end and you're still struggling, consider the position of your thoracic spine and the mobility that you can gain if you address it.